All right, let's talk more about the Federal Reserve and what's going to happen, not what has happened. And bring in our A-list panel, StoneX Chief Market Strategist Kathryn Rooney Vera. What did Alan Greenspan years ago, decades ago, Kathryn, say? If you understood what I said, then I must have misspoke or something like that. I mean, here was the point I was trying to make about the Fed. I believe you are based down in South Florida. You go down to South Florida in 2021, the economy was booming, and yet the Federal Reserve was stimulating as if everything was still, I'm kind of doing this with the camera, sorry, was still super locked down. And I think that's the mistake that they made. Tell me yes or no if you agree. And why do we care? We care because a lot of Americans are now getting pinched by borrowing costs that have just sprung up on them, and they're suddenly paying 12% for a car loan.
There are two things that are historically improbable. One, that the Fed's forecasts are precise across the board and accurate. And two, a soft landing. Both of those things are historically improbable. But the market has discounted them as very likely, if not the base case. Even the Fed basically laid out in its summary of economic projections this perfect soft landing scenario, but then said, no, soft landing is not our base case. It clearly is the base case. So I think on your program, Brian, what I said a couple of weeks ago was go long tips, it gets offensive, buy put options on tech. And since then, those trades have paid off very nicely. I do think that the Fed is going to have a tough time cutting rates next year. The 100 basis points that were priced in June, I think taking 50 basis points off of that 100 rate cut projection in its expectations for 2023 is more coherent with the higher for longer message the Fed is trying to send.
Well, if we could bring that the plots, the light bright, whatever from today back up, guys, because I think the issue, Lindsay, is to what Kathryn's saying is the Fed. The projections is that they think they're going to actually start to cut rates next year. Some on Wall Street might agree. And again, but so here we go. This is sort of the pace of where, and I'm showing our viewers kind of a slight decline, indicating the Fed thinks that they may be lowering rates in 2024, 2025. Let's hope they do. And Jim talked about it in Mad Money. They've engineered this slower landing pretty well so far. So on that note, I think you do, Kathryn, have to give the Federal Reserve and Powell and his team a little bit of credit on that. And I want to make sure I heard you said you want to go tips, Treasury inflation protected securities. That sounds like you think there may be more inflation ahead. Oh, by the way, oil is at $90.
Correct. And that does eventually flow through to core PCE. We also have, of course, other phenomena such as a fiscal deficits that is enormous heading into an election year. We also have the CHIP Acts and the Inflation Reduction Act. There's a lot of things that I think are inflationary, but the primary one I would say, Brian, is that the main driver of core PCE is services, and we are a service-based consumption with a consumer that's remarkably confident. So unless that change, and like Lindsay said, the Fed, something has to break for the Fed to get to that 2% target. It's going to be difficult in the current environment to have both the soft landing, no landing, and the 2% target.
Yeah, and let's hope that doesn't happen. I'm going to end by drawing my projection of the consumer facing higher interest rates. Lindsay, Kathryn, thank you very much. We survived.